Welcome. I am so glad you joined us on this kind of gray and cold day. Uh, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us for Native Plants at Noon on the Road. I'm Tammy Thompson, Outreach and Conference Manager for Deep Roots, and this is one of my favorite days of the week, or days of the month, I'm sorry. I am excited you all joined us as we explore today Bob Brown Conservation Area in Northwest Missouri. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you real quick. There, got it. I'm not sure how many of you have visited a wetland during migratory fowl season, but if you haven't, we are here to tell you it is a sight to behold. I have loved visiting wetlands in winter almost my entire life, and I hope you're as jazzed about the site today as I am. Next month, we will take Native Plants at Noon on the road again, so 2 months in a row, to the short pine forests in the Missouri Ozark region. I am really excited to share that site with you as well. So during the program today, if you have questions, please go ahead and note those in the Q&A tool or the Facebook comments on Zoom, and we will get to as many of those as we can. I'll be using the chat feature to send you any information or links that Sean mentions today. And be sure to stay to the end to have a chance to win a prize. So let's get started. First of all, we want to express a big thank you to the Missouri Department of Conservation for their participation and partnership on this series and everything they do to help encourage and empower people to plant more native plants. And we want to thank you as well, our audience, for your support and the feedback you give us to improve on this series. Before I introduce our speaker today, I want to let you know that this Native Plants at Noon focuses more on wildlife than plants, and therefore our views are a little bit further back than we're used to. We are also a little quiet sometimes as we are kind of sneaking up to get views of the migratory fowl with as little disturbance to them as possible. I also want to mention that this site has some limited hours right now to the public. The site we're covering won't be open again to the public until after December 26th. So that gives you a little time to plan too. But that will change soon. So after December 26th, hunting season will be over and that will be open to the public again. And finally, this was my maiden voyage for recording a webinar. So you will see a few wonky things and the remnants of a true newbie when it comes to videography. Thankfully, Sean is an engaging host and makes it so much better. But you're welcome to make fun of my videography skills, just not in the chat. With that, I am delighted to introduce you to Sean Cleary from the Missouri Department of Conservation. Sean is a district supervisor and wildlife biologist for MDC, and you will soon see that he has an incredible knowledge and enthusiasm for the sites under his care. Among his accomplishments, he can talk to the birds and get them to respond. And he can also rescue deer that are stuck in frozen waterways without getting wet. So just an all-around great guy. So now with that, I'm going to roll tape and let Sean take it away.
I'm a district supervisor for Missouri Department of Conservation. Good morning, my name's Sean Cleary. I'm a district supervisor for Missouri Department of Conservation, and we were on Bob Brown Conservation Area this morning. We're in the middle of waterfowl season, so we've got some special access to our refuge that's generally closed to the public, and obviously we're not the public. And we're going to talk about some of the vegetation we manage for migrating waterfowl and some of our native wetland species too. Right now we're in Sandpiper Flats, which is a refuge pool, and it is closed to the public, like I said. But this is one of our really traditional moist soil units. You can see behind me, a lot of tall native sunflowers, which came on late in the season. But the stuff I want you to look at is below that. There's some really light brown tan vegetation, foxtails, millets, bidens, all kinds of native vegetation that we manage for on this area. We do this primarily with a drawdown structure. Here in a little while we'll see some of the water out in the pools, and we're standing on shallow water, and you can see we've disked through this just to kind of knock some of it down. But what we do in the spring, these pools are pretty full like this. And as the spring transitions into summer, we start bringing the water off this and making it dry, but very slow, like an inch or two a week. And as that inch or two exposes a mud flat, certain native species like these millets, these smartweeds, bidens, they all like to germinate in those conditions, and that's what grows the food for the ducks. These moist soil or native wetland plants, they provide a lot of small seeds, which are very important for, green-winged teal, pintail, a lot of your species that eat small seeds. But they have a dual function. Not only do they produce seed that's edible to migrating waterfowl, the actual plant material, when it's knocked down and flooded, it starts to break down. And in this process of breaking down, water bugs or invertebrates, they really thrive in this situation. And there's quite a few waterfowl that come through Missouri, shovelers, blue-winged teal, and most waterfowl will eat animal matter, i.e. invertebrates. And they're grown from the flooded substrate of these native plants. So they have a really neat double function. Generally, we'll manage half the area or more, sometimes 3/4 in native vegetation. We will probably see some flooded agricultural fields too. These are kind of the high calorie foods for these waterfowl that migrate, thousands of miles. This is a stopping site for all the waterfowl that come through the state. So we like to provide them food, habitat, and then some of our consumptive users like to come shoot them too through a morning waterfowl draw. But this is a really good example of one of our moist soil units. There's probably 15 to 20 species of moist soil plants around us, beneath us. They tolerate flooding. They like to get flooded, most of them. They'll grow in water, not overtopped, produce seed in water because they're wetland plants. All right. Well, here we're kind of discussing some of the infrastructure that helps us create some of the flooded wetlands, both cropland and native, on Bob Brown Conservation Area. The area was designed with this sole purpose to flood up about 1,000 acres on Bob Brown and provide that during crucial times of migration, both spring and fall. The way we do that is through screw gates, structures, and this is essentially a huge pipe goes under this road, accesses this header ditch, which is a storage ditch, and this runs through the entire area with wetlands off to the side. And when you build up high enough head pressure, it flows into there whenever you want it. And then you can flood this pool. Same thing over here, 2 structures off each one. The whole area is fed by a large pump system, and we can look at that later. And it pumps out of the Missouri River and provides this water to the entire area. So over here on the right is just more of that header ditch. You can see tons of birds getting up over here. Let's just keep walking towards them. just keep walking, they're going to keep coming out. There's a wood duck, a long-tailed one. Wood ducks.
Stirring them up.
Mm-hmm. There's still more going to come out of there. A couple thousand there.
They're kind of hard to see, but we were flushing thousands of ducks. You can kind of see them on the horizon there, that moving dark cloud. At least 6 to 8 species of our typical puddle ducks.
Cool, more to come, you know.
Those were American coots.
Okay, here we are in Iowa Point Refuge Pool. A lot of ducks out. We're still seeing a lot of early migrant species, wood ducks, pintail, green-winged teal, a few blue-winged teal. Quite a few mallards are here from the last front last week. And you can see every once in a while, when it's not a big flock of ducks jumping, you'll see a pair, and it's always a female and a male, because ducks are already doing their pair bonding this early to prepare for next spring. Ducks find a new mate every year and stick with that mate unless it's shot or killed. Geese, however, they pair for life. So once they, like a Canada honker, Canada goose, once they find their mate, they stick with them until said mate dies. Same thing with swans. Snow geese are the same way. It's one of the differences between ducks and geese. But we're pretty much going to see all kinds of ducks here. And you see how anytime you see a pair flying like that, they're pair bonded up. There's your wood ducks right here. They're their only squealing species. Now up here there's a big wad of ducks, and we can see kind of what the habitat they're preferring right now. We've got a little bit of ice. The ice started last week. Generally when it gets cold and starts freezing, we have a small change from that moist soil food, the small seeds and the invertebrates, and when it gets cold it drives these birds to seek out cereal grains or high calorie food, you know, your soybeans, your corn, millet, stuff like that, because their body's demanding that, and they can go feed that real easy, be done in 5 minutes, and get back to courting or loafing or whatever they're doing. But as we walk up here, I think there's probably 5,000 sitting up here on the right, so we'll get them jumping and see what they were in. And we're kind of pushing the ducks around too. You know, this is a refuge, and we're granted access, obviously, but you know, that was something as a biologist that always interested me, is why certain ducks were in certain areas. All the ducks we're seeing here are what we call puddled ducks, and it's kind of the shallow water ducks. They like water that's, you know, 12 inches or less deep, so they can, it has to do with their neck size. When they tip up and feed off the bottom, look at all the ducks. See all that black? That's all ducks. So when they tip up, the length of their neck tells you what depth they like to feed in. So geese with longer necks, they actually like to feed in deeper water. The other guild of duck species, and we don't get too many of these on Bob Brown because it's all shallow water, we call them diver species, and those are your canvasbacks, your ringnecks, your scaup, and they actually dive down 20 feet sometimes to get clams, mussels. They eat a lot of animal matter. Holy cow. Okay, so out in all those weeds, see all that black on the ground? Those are all ducks. I mean, there must be 20,000 sitting there. We're talking
20,000.
epic. Like, and you see how they're letting us get closer to them? This group here, oh, they're starting to go a little. Mostly mallards, so you hear the hen quacking. The mallard drake doesn't quack. He has a dreet, dreet. Those are all mallard hens calling out there.
You want to try to get closer?
Sure. Pretty cool. There we go. Oh yeah, a bunch of pintails. Wow.
And how long will they be here?
How long will they be here? Until complete and total ice up pushes them out. So probably the next big front where the ice gets an inch or two, we'll lose half of these going south. And then usually a couple thousand of your hardiest mallards hang out, and they'll have just a little hole out there, and there'll be 1,000 on that hole. And then one other front, probably early December, will push them all south of here. But it's all dependent on the shallow water freezing up and them not having access to food. Here it comes rolling right at us. Right at us. He saw us. It was a gadwall. right now, we're pushing them a little, but they're over there on that disked edge of moist soil, which is really good loafing, because see, waterfowl like to just hang out. If it's sunny, they don't have to be out eating, courting. They sleep a lot, they fly a lot. So I imagine when we leave, they'll probably get back over here in this, because they were pretty thick as we round the corner in this ag, and just kind of use this whole thing. And so they have both types of food right at their access. And in little family groups, they'll swim around, try one type, go over here, et cetera, et cetera.
And do you plant the corn every year? Do they plant
Yes,
the
so
corn?
we have permittee farmers that, rent the ground from us just where we want it. The moist soil we don't plant. We mine it, we bring it on with drawdowns, drawing the water off the pool, like I mentioned in the first little snippet. So the corn costs us nothing. And it's a really crucial part of how these areas function. Because if we went all native, we would see half the duck use because of the coldness. If we knew Missouri didn't get cold and it was like a southern coastal area, you could do all native. They don't get the drive to, and same thing, a lot of the high calorie foods help fuel their migration. So they can fly farther on a cereal grain than a tummy full of invertebrates or seeds.
The birds on the water are more American coots.
They're in this right here, where that pair set down.
Uh-huh.
For some reason close in the weeds. The one walking. We'll go up to those shovelers now. So let's see. Gadwall drake on the left. Another drake sitting there.
Yeah.
And then a gadwall hen on the right. And we can get close to these shovelers.
That's as far as it sounds.
Okay. But the two drake green wings, they're really pretty. They're both sleeping. All right, here we are. We're at the Bob Brown Conservation Area Pump House. And this is how we get water to the 1,000 or more acres we flood every year. In the house behind me, we've got two submersible pumps. They both pump out of the river when flows are good. They go into a header ditch just like we're seeing right here. And like I showed you before, we've got two screw gates leading out to other pools and other header ditches so that we can flood the interior wetlands. These are electrical pumps. There is a little bit of a cost to, producing this type of water, but it's figured into our annual budgets for the resource and for the public to use. Most springs is the best time to see all your waterfowl without a hunting season attached to it. Your birds are going to be prettier. We do pump in the spring if it's not raining. We try to provide some seasonal food for them to go back north on. Right now we're kind of fueling the migration south. But same thing when they're headed back to north to the prairie pothole region or Canada, where most of these puddle ducks reproduce. This is one of the key habitat areas where they can stop, refuel, and make it to the next refuge. So it's kind of a neat system, that's United States, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and state-owned conservation area or conservation agencies like MDC have done, and it really pays dividends. We've had incredible waterfowl numbers for the past 20 years, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact they get all the calories and the nutrients they need. So when they go north to breed, They don't have to pick up all the food up there. They're getting all the amino acids and nutrients on the way, especially those hens that are going to lay clutches. So they're preparing themselves for breeding to have clutches and big clutches, which helps success. But this is the pump station. It's a big deal. If it goes down, this whole place is bone dry. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed some of the footage. We got to see a lot of ducks today, some pretty good habitat. Got to see some infrastructure of Bob Brown and kind of the heart and veins that make it wet. You know, it's since the river's channelized, you know, this stuff doesn't happen naturally anymore, and we need the pumps and the, you know, screw gates and header ditches and all that stuff to manage the water in a you know, succinct way, so that we can flood portions, leave other portions unflooded, to be flooded at a different time during migration. But I'd like to thank Deep Roots for coming out and sharing some of this. I hope it spurs some interest, especially in the spring. Any birders or non-consumptive users, boy, it's phenomenal here in the spring, and you can access the whole area. You don't need tags or anything like during the waterfowl season. But it's something to behold, especially if you like watching waterfowl in the spring and even in the fall too. Bob Brown sits really close to Lusk Bluffs National Wildlife Refuge, which is up near Mound City. A lot of the waterfowl, when they are here in the county, kind of trade off between a couple MDC areas, Bob Brown and Nottoway Valley and Lusk Bluffs, so they really help play off each other. This year, Lusk Bluffs is kind of dry because we went through a really intense drought. They don't have the pumps like we do. They have a few of them, so a lot of that habitat's actually dry, where these other two areas can kind of help pad that. So the ducks and geese usually use these areas in the fall. They do have a place to go, stop, refuel, and they can continue their journey south. But we appreciate your time and hope to see you guys out here.
That was outstanding, Sean. And I know that some of you thought you couldn't hear, but we did actually have some periods of quiet in there. So, Sean, thank you so much for showing us around Bob Brown, showing us how it's done. I'd seen those screw gates a million times. I had no idea how it actually worked. And I've seen pump houses before, but didn't really know that Lusk Bluffs didn't pump water in, but you guys did. So very interesting, just kind of the nuts and bolts that goes along with creating and maintaining a wetland. So, Sean, this is Sean Cleary, everybody. Thank you so much for chiming in some of those periods where it was a little bit quiet. Like I said, we were trying to be very respectful of the wildlife. So we didn't want to just go in like a tornado and start talking at the top of our lungs. And so Sean helped us kind of navigate that. We have quite a few questions here. Is there anything that we missed that you wanted to tell people before we started in on the questions?
No, not really, except for the blue-winged teal slide at the intro were northern shovelers.
Really?
Yep, just to be clear.
Okay,
Yep.
Cool. That came off the MDC site, so I'll take a peek and see what we got there. Perfect.
Well, I'll take a peek too and correct them.
Yeah, we want to make sure that we're all doing the right thing there.
Absolutely.
And I could have grabbed the wrong photos, but they're shovelers.
Yep, northern shovelers. Yep.
Northern shovelers. Cool. And we will definitely take a peek at that. So Kathleen Pine asks, how many duck species are usually there during the winter season? It's a great question, Kathleen.
All right. Typically in Missouri, we see, average of 10, sometimes up to 15 duck species. And as I stated, there's kind of two versions of our ducks we see. There's the diver duck species and the dabbling or the puddle duck species. And I kind of explain the diver ducks usually like, riverine, deep ponds, lakes, etc., where the dabbling ducks like the shallow wetlands like we saw at Bob Brown.
All right. That's a great question. Dawn asks, so is this not a naturally occurring location? Just
No.
another question. Okay.
Not at all. It is, was converted to ag for years. MDC acquired Bob Brown, I believe, in the mid 80s, and then started putting in the infrastructure so that we could controllably flood, and where water went. But no, it's not naturally occurring. It would, be bone dry unless there was a flood event happening.
And it wouldn't have the same effect.
No, because of channel, I don't want to go down the deep road of channelization of the river, but yeah, so, historically before channelization, when the river would get a little higher, it would go feed these wetlands that we're imitating, that, are man-made now and, naturally occur. Well, now that it's a big ditch, there's no connectivity, the big levee we stood by prevents that, and it's everywhere. There's not, there's a few places that are unchannelized that are sort of natural, but they wouldn't operate like Bob Brown because of the flashy nature of a channelized river.
Okay. It was a great question, Dawn. Kathleen asks, is this a drive-through area similar to Les Bluffs?
Yes. So there is a main gravel road that you have access to. Most of the little or all the little roads, either are gated or say no vehicles beyond this point. Obviously, we were in a state truck and had access to that, but there's plenty of viewing opportunity. There's not a big loop like Les Bluffs, but plenty of viewing opportunity, to see a lot of different waterfowl.
Yeah, it was beautiful too. And you didn't have, similar to Les Bluffs, you didn't have to go far if you chose to get out of your car to see, to get a little closer. Like I said, we were really respectful of the wildlife. And I think even at Les Bluffs, we don't want to get too close because we don't want to be pushing them. We don't want to be pushing them around in their own house, so to speak. Yep. Suzanne asks, when specifically in the spring would you recommend visiting? Okay,
so there's kind of a two-part answer. Because waterfowl migrate in different times. So here's a general rule. The bigger the duck, the earlier it migrates north, because a bigger duck's going to want to get on its nest quicker, have longer time for its babies to grow so it can fly south, where a smaller duck like a teal, it doesn't have, it's probably got a month variation besides a mallard. Mallards peak spring mallard migration is generally, end of February, early March.
Oh, that's very early.
And then your smaller species are going to be all of March through April.
Very good.
And your snow geese are going to be earlier than that because they're a bigger bird. They need that more time on their nesting grounds.
Trenton asks, what kind of plant is a bidon? I'm not sure how to spell that. And Trenton, you spelled it correctly. So
another common name, bidon, is the Latin kind of species name, and there's probably 8 species of them. A beggar tick is a real common name. Yep. It's got 2 little prongs on it. It's kind of a skinny triangle. That's a bidon, and they're great waterfowl food.
I love them too.
Mm-hmm.
Christine asks, is riverlands similar with pumping to flood areas?
Yes, up in Iowa, I think, is where that is. And very similar. I don't know their pump layout or anything, but their pools and infrastructure are, real similar to what we have to do also. Okay. Same reasons also.
Awesome. Yeah, that's, it's really interesting to see that whole infrastructure was just really kind of mind-blowing to me, how you can draw it in and draw it down. It's very interesting.
Well, and as I was talking about the depth of water that our dabblers like to feed in is under 12 inches. Well, if we didn't have the levees, because of the way the land lays to flood something, we would have to put 10 foot of water in one corner to get it an inch deep, and it wouldn't be as efficient. So, everything was topographically surveyed, and those levees, as you could see, kind of were curvy, and they follow the lay of the land so that we can get an ideal depth for most of the area and maximize that.
That is outstanding. Obviously we have a classroom that is watching. We have Marie, who's age 8, asking, will there be ducks there even once it starts snowing? Which is a great, I think I asked you the same question. So
Absolutely. So ducks aren't as worried about snowfall, especially the mallard, the big green-headed one. They're pretty tough and they don't mind snow. The key is this thickness of the ice on the shallow water they like to feed and loaf in. So when that gets so thick that they can't keep it open as a big group, that's more the thing that shoos the ducks south, not so much snow. Now a foot of snow, yeah, that would probably run some ducks out, but an inch or two, they're really geared for it. I mean, they're designed to, hang out in those types of conditions.
And it's interesting to see them take flight from snow, because that black on the white snow, and then they take flight. It's just amazing. So Madeline, I think we answered your second question, how long too? And the answer is it depends on when the ice will drive them out, not necessarily the time.
Yep.
All right. Suzanne asks, oh no, Suzanne just says thank you. So you are welcome, Suzanne. And I checked, those photo errors are all on me, Sean. I'll fix them before we post the final video. My apologies. I probably got kind of excited by the photos. Christine asks, I think she said, I meant Riverlands near West Alton at the confluence near St. Louis on that Riverlands question.
Okay. It's, I'm familiar with that site. It's a little more, I think, a little more kind of open to the Mississippi River when it gets high and they have gates they open. Maybe a few pumps, but I'm not as versed as on the areas on that side of the state as here. So.
Okay. And there's a lot of difference between that side of the state and our side when it comes to it.
Yep.
All right. We have Nuno, age 5, asking, what kind of a house do the ducks live in?
Okay. So ducks don't need a typical house or structure like humans. They're designed to sit out in the open, rain, shine, snow, thunder, and they prefer sitting on water than standing on land most of the time because they're designed to swim with webbed feet, and their duck feathers are waterproof, etc. But they don't need a house. Even the nesting hen, when they get up north in the kind of prairie pothole region, when they nest, it's right out on bare ground adjacent to shallow water wetlands like we're seeing here. And in Missouri, we don't have any nesting ducks besides the wood duck. It's our only native species that reproduces here in Missouri.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Donna asks, and this is a good question too, is the area being affected or has been affected by bird flu?
Bob Brown hasn't documented any cases, but as a scientist, biologist, I would say there's probably been some birds that have had it come through the area because, right now there's almost 70,000 birds there. So, the chances of all of them not having this, and waterfowl are very gregarious. And what that means is they like to be with ducks. It doesn't matter what species, as long as they're the same neck length and they like the same water depth. They don't care if it's a gadwall Wigeon with mallards. They're very, they like each other. So with that being said, avian flu could go through a population very easily. And that's why I said, there's probably been some go through Bob Brown, but no mass die-offs or anything that we've seen or addressed.
That actually kind of leads into Charles's question. He says, a lake I visit near St. Louis, there's a lone snow goose hanging with Canadians. Is that unusual? And I think you just answered it, but.
Well, not at all. The only thing is, and snow geese are kind of the funny ones. One of two things: either he or she got detached from its flock and now just wants to be with the Canada geese, or it could be wounded. And sometimes, when they fly into a reservoir or lake or something, they were wounded, and once they land, they can't get back up. But if he seems in perfect health and acting normal, he's just hanging with his buddies and, waiting for some other white geese to fly over and join,
Yeah. They like each other. They're community.
Yep,
based.
they sure do.
Margaret asked a great question, and I know you guys have done this recently. How do you estimate the number of ducks on the water?
Okay, so we do it two ways: by aerial, so a helicopter or a plane, and we'll fly over an area like that big black wad of ducks we saw before they flew. And when they're that close to each other, we can figure an acre of ducks equals, I'm just an example. Acre of ducks equals 10,000, That's not the actual figure, but so you can estimate, there's 5 acres of ducks. There's probably 50,000 down there. Okay. So that's the one way we do it, by aerial surveys. The other one is by a ground count, which is kind of what you and I did. So we would either walk down or drive down that levee, flush them. And like I said, there was probably 10,000, 20,000 ducks. After you do it for a while, you kind of get to notice, that's 5 or 10,000, and that's, sometimes that's close enough for us,
Yeah. It's really just kind of a stunning, the video doesn't do it justice.
It doesn't.
It just doesn't. And the sounds are almost as impressive as the visual, for sure. And this is our last question. Pete asks, do eagles visit the site to feed on the ducks?
Absolutely. So, our bald eagle follows the waterfowl migration. A lot of people associate them with snow geese, but they'll eat any waterfowl they can, take down, or a wounded one they can just hop on and eat. But yeah, they are closely tied to waterfowl migration every year, and that's their predominant food during spring and fall migration. They kind of turn to the river and eat some fish too, some of the resident ones, but migrating waterfowl, their primary food source.
Well, we are thrilled to have you, Sean. I appreciate everyone's questions too, and we really loved having the students, the younger folks in there. They are our future. So I am so thankful that you all were in there as well. Sean, I'm going to let you we have a question. We give away a prize every time we do a webinar for Native Plants at Noon, and it's prize time right now. So the question is, what waterfowl create lifelong pair bonds? Sean mentioned it in the recording. So we will wait. We're going to let folks put their answers in the chat, use the chat feature, and Miller will text me at the end in another minute or two, the prize winner, and I'll let you announce the prize winner, or I'll let you announce the answer, because right now I'm not 100% sure I'd get it right.
Well, you've got some good students. Everybody's getting it right, looks like to me. I can see the responses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and start closing us out, but stay on, Sean, so that you can finish. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed our visit out there. I know that folks are going to want to go up and see Bob Brown. They can start going. It's open to the public after December 26th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So perfect. And as long as it's not real thick and icy, people can expect to see some waterfowl up there. Is that right?
Yeah, with the forecast coming, it's probably going to be really icy.
Okay.
But once that subsides in January, February, and a good litmus is if you have a pond around your home, and once it becomes open, usually those shallow water wetlands are open too, and you can expect to see open water. But until it unfreezes, that's when they're triggered to go back north, and that's when we really see big numbers.
Outstanding. Well, we are so grateful for you. And we thank our audience too for all of your insightful questions. We are so appreciative of Missouri Department of Conservation and our relationship with you all as well. We just really could not do the service that we do without your support, for sure. So thank you for joining us today for Native Plants at Noon. I'm going to do a couple of announcements. First, I'd like to show you guys some things that are going on, upcoming events. So the Anita B. Gorman Discovery Center is going to have a wild edibles class from 10 to 2 on Christmas Eve. I mean, that sounds like a fun way to spend Christmas Eve. Registration is not required. So if you want to join that, somehow my tech is being goofy. We will do our first Lunch and Learn January 5th, DIY native garden design here at Deep Roots, and then Native Plants at Noon on the road on January 19th. We are going to go to the Short Pine Forest down in the Ozark region. So we're really excited about those. Our webinar and its resources are always recorded and posted to our website after our webinar airs live. And while you're there looking for those, please consider a donation to Deep Roots as well. So I'm going to come back to you. I have a winner, but what is the correct answer for those that did not get it?
It's geese. They pair bond for life, and your swans, they're closely related. But yeah, all your goose species, they pair bond for life until that's broken. And there's some research out there that depending on how old they are, they don't repair bond. So we can read into that as humans, but it's pretty neat. And ducks are the only ones, they get a different mate every season.
That's outstanding. And I did remember that. That's why I did watch the video several times, because it was so fun. And I watched it today like it was the first time. Now our winner is Katie Childers or Childers. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce your name. So congratulations, Katie. You got the answer, and you have won an 8-count native plant note card collection, and we will send that to you. So Katie, if you would send me your email at Tammy, Tammy at deeprootskc.org, let me know where I should be mailing those. So congratulations again, Katie, and thanks for being such an astute viewer. So I want to wish you all happy holidays, and we will hopefully see you back for Native Plants at Noon again on January 19th for our next one. And have a great season, and always remember, what you plant matters.